topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good morning, Florida. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. I want to start off, we're in Tampa today, and I want to start off the show just showing you how important prayer is. Let me bring on my friend, our expert, attorney Debbie Baker. And look, she's got a smile on her face. So I've been praying for Debbie and her family because of the hurricane coming her way. And boy, there was a lot of people hurt in this hurricane. A lot of people have been put in a homeless position, and you came out okay. Prayer does work.
Well, it does. We dodged the bullet. You know, one of these days something will come through here, and all the people I'm committed to help will say, "Deb, did you lose everything?" And I'll go, "Yes, come help." Yes, I'm so glad you noticed. But we're fine. You know, me and Art.
Yeah, but you're the only one who would have a good attitude about it.
Oh, I know about that, but it doesn't pay to have anything else. And it's out of my control. I mean, you know, somebody said, how do we cause a hurricane? Like, be a cause in the matter of a hurricane? I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, and you know, I know ideally these shows are pretty timeless. However, the last few days have been quite astounding in terms of how communities come together in any tragedy, and that's a nonpartisan coming together. We don't say, "Oh, I loved her until she told me she was doing this, so I'm not going to help her." And I know 3 families now who've been pretty much wiped out as a result of this hurricane. In areas that have, even where they live, have never been flooded. And they've lived in their homes for 40, I mean, we're talking people who've been in their homes for 40 years. They have never been flooded with any hurricane that came through Tampa Bay. And this one was such a combination of forces, storm surges, whatever, 3 feet of water. And I think in all 3 situations I'm thinking of. And their community has rallied to support them, which is wonderful. I was thinking about our topic in the normal month, so to speak, of estate planning or whatever. And there weren't, whatever we talk about, wherever our conversation takes us. The reality of Sophia, whether she really exists, our cats, wherever our conversation takes us. And there were deaths. There probably weren't nearly as many as people might have anticipated, but however many people died are too many. My prayer last week was let it just fizzle out in the Gulf of Mexico before it did, before Helene did any damage. Didn't happen. And my prayer would be that for anybody who suffered an injury or family who suffered a death, that the last thing they have to think about is whether they have to call a lawyer to take care of things. You know,
And Debbie, let me say this. You know, you're in the business of planning. You do estate planning. And this is something we always talk about. You never know what's going to happen.
Right.
And not to wait.
And not to wait. And I know people will after this, after they recover, if they're busy recovering, people who have not done their planning will do it because they'll get, oh my gosh, look at the bullet we dodged because we had what we needed for the person who was injured. We had those documents in order, or we don't have anything. And I can't even think about subjecting my family to dealing with my injury or my death after a trauma like this if I haven't done something to make it a little easier. You know, I have a friend who's got some surgery scheduled for Wednesday, and he redid his documents and we got them done yesterday. He created them himself. He's got the capacity to do that. So I just notarized them. But we did it so that he can go to surgery Wednesday and, you know, God forbid anything happens, his wife is taken care of if he dies, but his wife also has all the powers in place to help him if need be. And it was just an honor and a blessing to be able to do it and get it back to him yesterday. So actually he has them, but it's been it's just interesting.
Does a tragedy like this give people a nudge that they got to do something now and not wait till later?
I would think so. The thing I found that gives people the nudge is they wind up in probate, which we will talk about next month, particularly. But they wind up in court or having to go to court to get access to things that could have been given access to prior to somebody dying. So somebody dying often, either somebody dying prompts people to plan, them having to take a relative or a friend through probate has people plan. I had one client whose brother-in-law died in Florida, but he lived in California and the whole family wanted him to represent the estate. And he's an attorney. And I kept saying, do you have your plan? And he said, no. I said, okay, help me out here. You've just been through this, which was not easy. Okay. I said, you're married with no children. So it's like, you know, either all goes to your wife or whatever. What are you waiting for? And finally, I nudged him enough that he called he said to me, well, I'll call them Monday. I said, it's 2:00 in California right now. Tell me why you won't call this woman today. He said, I'll call her today. So within 2 weeks, he had his plan in place. And he really thanked me for the peace of mind it gave both he and his wife for something happens. It was covered. But oftentimes that's what it takes. You have to be part of it, which you never anticipated. There's a wonderful article in the Art magazine called, which we will use next week, called next month, My Mom Died, Then Came the Ordeal. And it says, as an executor, I faced hassle after hassle. And I've actually written to ARP to see if I can get permission to reprint it. But it just describes the nightmare of probate. So for people who are watching or listening today, and you're in Florida, so I know that they had tropical storm warnings on the East Coast in Palm Beach County. So more than likely, anywhere you lived in Florida, you might have had something going on or knew somebody who was in some kind of potential danger. If you don't have something in place to take care of your family if you die, or to take care of you if you get injured, again, you're playing with fire. People should just, if you've lost a person the only thing they should have to do for months is grieve. That's the only thing. You shouldn't even have to think about calling an attorney to ask what you do.
Debbie, the west part of the state is where it worse. So I'm on the east part of the state, and I got to tell you, for about 30 minutes, we got gale force winds. In fact, Sophia lost a couple trees. That's how strong this was. We were on the whole other side of the state. But see, what I love about how you practice law, you really keep things simple. I think the person who labeled estate planning, that estate gets people like, oh, I got to have this mansion or something. And, sometimes it's just a will or a trust, isn't it?
Yeah. It's, I spoke to somebody last week who said I have everything in place. So I asked her a couple of questions. Her mother doesn't own anything, and she's on her mother's checking account. I said, okay, because her mother's going to be 97. I said, okay. I said, who's the beneficiary for the checking account? She said, no, I am. I said, no, you're not. I said, you're the co-owner. But what happens to that money, however little it is, if the two of you die together? She said, oh. I said, right. I said, go to the bank next week, get your brother's name and his social security number, make him the beneficiary, and pretty much you're covered. You're covered. You've already got her documents while she's alive taken care of. You just need to take care of that bank account. I think, because she said, do I have to use the attorney who did her original documents? I said, no. She said, okay. I said, but you won't need an attorney. If you put a beneficiary on that account, you're covered. So people just don't understand. You and I've talked about, if you and Sophia have joint accounts, as long as you have a beneficiary on those accounts, then that money is taken care of. That money's taken care of. If you have some way that if you own a home together or separately, you've somehow done something, it's either in a trust or you've done what they call a life estate deed, enhanced life estate deed here in Florida, and you've passed ownership to that real property as soon as you die, then you've done everything you can, and you won't need an attorney, and you won't need a court. Whoever is the beneficiary, the bank will call them, and if whoever gets to own the house will take a death certificate down to your local tax collector, and over time, over a few weeks, they'll change the title on the house, and that'll be it. And it's not complicated, but people think, oh, somebody told me this last week. I left my house to my children in my will. I went, that's great. And they'll wind up in court. But it's in my will. I said, I understand that. But in order for them to get it, somebody will have to go to court to be appointed to do that. I didn't know that. Well, why would you? Why would you? Or a case that's in probate because her father actually meant to leave his entire condo to his daughter, and when whoever did the deed didn't do that, so she owns 50% of the house, but he owned 50% of the house when he died, and so now they have to go to probate to get the other 50%. Nobody knew.
Well,
who knew?
I want to get in about minor children, Debbie.
Okay.
What's better, a trust or a will?
If you have minor children, in my opinion, you need to do a trust. Children can't inherit until they're 18 years old. Most people wouldn't have trusted themselves with the equivalent of $50, a long time ago today. So they're not going to give it to their children. So they need to find out who's going to manage their children's money, and then who's going to take care of the child until they're 18 years old. So you need a trust. Without minor children, not necessarily. That just depends upon how you want to distribute things. But even if you've got grandchildren, in my opinion, you need a trust, because if their parent dies before they're 18, the grandchild's 18, you want somebody to manage that money. So trusts are more complex because you've got provisions for, nobody gets money until they're 21 or 25 or 35, and they get this much and this much. But if you want to protect your assets and you want to protect who's ever getting them, then yeah, you need a trust more than a will.
What does a trustee do?
The trustee is the one who's tasked with managing the money. Right now, I have a client who passed. She's got 3 daughters. 2 of the daughters will get their distributions completely as soon as it happens. And the 3rd daughter is supposed to get $500 a month until the daughter, dies. So the trustee is tasked with getting her sister $500 a month. And then they have to file a tax return every year, and they have to provide copies to the beneficiaries. The trustee generally has the discretion. Again, I have no idea what the 3rd is going to be worth. The beneficiary has the discretion probably to just distribute the money outright because it's more trouble than it's worth, and it's not that much money to the 3rd. But their role is to manage the money, invest the money. They have a fiduciary responsibility to maintain the value of the trust. Now, if they make an investment that doesn't work, they are not responsible for that. If they can verify that they thought it was going to be a good investment, they're not responsible for a loss. But part of their role is to manage whatever assets are in the trust. Their role would be if your house is in a trust, the trustee's role would be to sell the house and then put the money in the trust to manage for whoever else would be the beneficiary, whether it was charities or nieces and nephews or a pet trust for Sophia's cats, because you promised her you'd set up a trust for the cats. So they have a pretty big role. Once they become successor trustee, which is after you pass, they have all these fiduciary responsibilities. As long as you're alive, you have every responsibility that could be, because you could dissolve that trust tomorrow, and you're the trustee. But once you pass and somebody takes over, that's where all that other stuff kicks in.
I hear people talk about doing their own will. You see these commercials on TV, but one of the things I've learned from you, Debbie, is there is so much to know. Yeah. It's not, and you have all this in your head, and I just can't believe that somebody would not hire an attorney like yourself and try to do this themselves, when there's so much out there you need to know. Well,
they really think estate planning is very, based upon what you said at the beginning, people think you have to own a mansion. Okay.
Right.
So they think they don't have anything. And so it's simple. I don't think it is. I think that from what I've seen, there's too much chance of putting something in a totally boilerplate document because you didn't know to modify it. That could create problems down the road. For instance, you do it yourself will says that I, Steve Sanger, own 123 Main Street in, Titusville, Florida, or wherever. Okay. And I am giving this to my brother, so-and-so, upon my passing. Great idea. Looks good on a piece of paper, but you never asked anybody to say, will that work when I die? Who says no? Well, yes, but he'll have to go to court or whatever, because you don't know. So my recommendation often for people is find a service. There are legal services out there that are like membership-based, fee-based. I did this on a call with a bunch of fellow estate planning attorneys the other day, and my colleague said, we don't tout prepaid legal here. I said, okay. But here's my thing. If you called and said, Deb, Sophia and I really are broke, like we were wiped out in the hurricane, and we need to do something. and and so you either have to let me pay you something, or what do you suggest? I would send you to LegalShield.com. You can become a member in Florida for $27.95. In other states, it might vary a little bit. But they work with certified law firms to create documents for people that are compliant with that state's law, and they are in all 50 states. And I have sent a dozen or 18 people to them who I am convinced don't have the money or aren't going to part with the money, and say, listen, I really don't care. You need to get this done. They will take care of it for you. Now, in that case, if you want customized documents, more than just the basic, they'll refer you to somebody within their network who will charge you less than maybe somebody outside the network would. I don't know about that. But they are board certified. They are certified licensed attorneys. And they will give you documents that work. And years ago, if I'd become an attorney at 26 or something, I would be adamant that people work with me. And just as they say in Massachusetts, really bullshit if you work with somebody else, the technical term, So, but at this point, it's like, I don't care. Get it done. Get it done. Give your family the peace of mind. Do it right. Do not do it yourself. And the other thing I learned this year,
you've seen those, haven't you?
I've seen
People try to do it themselves.
Yeah. And the thing I learned this year from my mentor is, if somebody calls and says, I did it myself, do not review it. Do not review anything that was not created by a lawyer. Not. And I went, oh, I would, I'm here to help. I would have reviewed it. She said, no, you do not take a chance on reviewing something that wasn't created by a licensed attorney. Don't do it yourself.
It's good to have someone contact you, Debbie, just to review if they have a will or a trust, for you to review it, because it does change.
It does change. And I'm happy to review it. I don't charge for my consultations. It's not, it's not the walk of faith. I'm not going to charge for my consultations. I got a client, I've got somebody right now for whom I spent some time on the phone, and she's adamant about paying me for my time. And if I hadn't already agreed to charge her something, if they didn't move forward, I wouldn't have charged her for my time, because it's not why I do what I do. But yeah, you can find me at 813-586-1332. That's scrolling on the screen if you're watching. Deb Baker at London Baker Law, 2 B's in the middle, Deb Baker at London Baker Law. If you're out of state even, or so I'll talk to them. I can't advise them per se. I can't give them legal advice. I absolutely can give them idea of questions to ask somebody, places to look, beneficiary designations, that kind of thing. That's pretty universal. That would be in every state. That wouldn't matter what state you're in. You just, don't wait for a hurricane or a medical tragedy or emergency surgery. Do it when you can think about it a little more calmly than in a panic. Just.
And we're going to talk about, Debbie's with us every month. She's with us the last Monday at 9:00 each month. And it's, I love the way you break it down. You make it easier for people to understand. And I just love the way you explain things to people. And I got to tell you, we've got a ton of questions for next show.
Well, write them down and ask them, because it really helps. So that's good. Yes. That's good. But so listen, I think we're at the end. Listen, Rebel, Steve, have a great month, unless we have 30 seconds for you to ask me something quick, Steve.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you know what? I wanted to tell all of our Jewish friends, we want to wish them a Happy New Year this Thursday. It'll be Rosh Hashanah. and then the following week will be Yom Kippur. So we want to wish
Yeah,
all of our
Yom Kippur. It's not Kippur.
Yom Kippur.
Kippers are things you put on, sandwiches.
Yeah.
Kippur.
Oh. And our next show, I guess we're going to be doing on probate,
Yeah.
and that is so important because that can save you so much money.
Planning in advance will save you so much money. Yes, indeed.
Let's give your website too, Debbie.
Okay. The website is London, like the city, LondonBakerLaw.com. And remember the law if you look it up, because oftentimes people do forget it. So it's LondonBakerLaw.com. And people tell me I look really nice on the website. So my photos really, they've hired me because they check me out on the website and say, you look really nice. Okay, I appreciate it.
And you know what? I got to tell you, I got to throw something. You've got the greatest heart. We are so blessed to have you.
Thank you.
Debbie will be back again with us next month. Hey, stay safe, okay?
I will. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
God bless.
Yeah, you too.
That's attorney Debbie Baker. Her phone number is 813-586-1332. And if you know someone who needs an estate attorney, please give her a call. She's wonderful. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.